We're live. There
Awesome.
we go. All right, Cody, Paul, here we are. Opening ceremony for the AI for All Hackathon. This has been quite a journey to get us to this point, hasn't it?
Yeah, very excited to see this come into the world, right? And very excited to see what people build.
Yeah, what's this all about to begin with? I mean, like, actually, maybe we should start off with some introduction first, all right? Cody,
Yeah,
you wanna be first?
yeah, totally. So, hey, welcome everybody. I'm Cody. I'm the head of developer and product support at Fedi. And so we've been working on planning this hackathon for a little while now, right? Because we see this major intersection between Bitcoin and AI, which Paul's going to talk about in a little bit. But very excited to see what people build for this stuff. And we're going to be going over the logistics and sort of how the hackathon is going to be run over the course of the month. Paul's going to give some overview of his work that he's been doing with through Stak for the intersection of Bitcoin and AI. And then we're also going to have Obi, the CEO of Fedi, come on a little bit later. He's going to talk about like his work as well that we've been doing at Fedi for the intersection of Bitcoin and AI. We're going to do some overviews of like a lot of the Replit workshops and those sorts of things that we're doing, some of the Replit bounties, the prizes, and the schedule as we go for the rest of the month. So.
Yeah, and I'm Paul, co-founder of Stackwork. We've been at this intersection of machine learning models working together with human task workers being paid over Lightning for several years. So it's kind of crazy to see all the attention that ChatGPT has brought to the space. Caught us a little bit by surprise for sure, but I'm happy to be here and share our thoughts on it and what we've learned so far, and excited to see what everyone builds.
Yeah, I'm super excited to see how these two worlds are going to be colliding. And Paul, I heard you have like a very famous presentation that you usually give. Um, yeah, I'm down to learn. So how about we get your slide up and you kick it off? How about that?
Sure.
All
Yeah,
right,
go ahead, and if you want to show this diagram. This is kind of, normally I do a slide build, but since we're throwing everybody into the deep end here and it's an advanced crowd, we can talk about this. But in summary, what you see here is all the pieces that can help you make sense, especially if you're new to this whole open source and machine learning model world and chat models and LLMs. You'll hear all these different terms. So my goal in the next 10 minutes is to give you a framework where if you're cruising on Twitter or on a Discord chat and someone throws in a term like auto GPT or flan T5 or something like that, you have somewhere a scaffolding in your mind to stick that new item. And this diagram has worked for us for several, at least a year and a half now, where it's pretty much stayed constant. So I'll start with on the right side, if someone wants to highlight with their mouse, the closed models. This is what brought everyone here: ChatGPT, Midjourney. These are the consumer level generative AI models that got everyone so excited right now about machine learning and AI. Before, actually, it's funny, a year and a half ago, if you said the word AI in a meeting, you were kind of snickered at because it was so preposterous that using the term AI was a sign that you were a newbie, and you should say ML or machine learning or something like that. So it's funny how AI has now become back in vogue. So what everyone starts with is this Chat GPT on the right, or Midjourney, and this is where people tend to view this as the center, and then you work outwards from there. So I'm going to stick a logo on ChatGPT, put it on the App Store, and I'll be a top 10 app. That was around December of this past year. Now, there's a race between that purple box, closed source models, and open source models. So hats off to Stable Diffusion, to say Llama accidentally open source there when they leaked their weights. These closed source models now have open source counterparties that are closing the gap. They have not beat the closed source models yet. There's nothing that you're going to find that we've found that beats ChatGPT, even 3.5 or 4.0. Nothing's really beaten those guys yet. But these open source models are catching up, and this is kind of the great battle. And as Bitcoin and Lightning enthusiasts, we would love to see the open source model close that gap. So On the bottom right, you have the models, and these do pattern recognition and generate and predict things. But these models really can't do much. You'll say, hey, okay, I've got this great bit of paragraph of text that ChatGPT generated for me, but how do I do something with it? I actually want to send this message out on an email or post it to Twitter. And so that's where you get agents, that clear box on the top. You actually need actions to be taken for this to get really interesting. So if you're familiar with the new startup from Div called Multi-On, that's an example of a truly autonomous agent that you can give budgets to. And then those agents can go out and order you a burger, buy a flight, whatever. So that falls under that API box on the upper right. And then where Stackwork plays is this link between the models and the humans. So some of these agents you just don't want. I frankly don't want an autonomous agent buying $1,000 flight just yet. So I would love to be the human here that checks this. So this is human in the loop. If you hear things like reinforcement learning with human feedback, this is also where the human feedback comes into play. So anytime the model is not confident, before you send it to the API to buy something or do something or delete an account or freeze a credit card or do something, an action-oriented item like that on the agent side, you may want a human mixed in to make sure that that action makes sense. And so the last piece on the lower left there you see is memory. All of these models are stateless, and the human mind is also stateless, right? You're just having actions being done. So you need to actually have previous information. So this is where you might see a company take their entire history of support requests and load them into a database, either a graph database or vector database. And you'll hear this quite a bit. We created these embeddings and stored them in Pinecone or Weaviate. Those are popular examples of vector databases that have been around for a long time. Or I'm storing it in a graph database so I can do semantic search. So everything that you think about here on the lower left, think memory and Scratchpad. I don't want to have to redo the work that I just did using these models and humans and actions. I want to store this information, or I want to reference pre-existing information, and then ideally make this readable by the models in the future. So just think about embeddings and vector databases as ways to efficiently store and access previous knowledge. And it just really gives you an easy way to, when you hear these terms like embeddings, it took me forever to figure that out and what the heck they meant by that. And so if you ever hear about database or storage, think about this bottom left-hand corner. And one label you might hear that encompasses both graph and vector databases is the term semantic search. This was popular, 15, 20 years ago. Everyone wanted to move away from keyword searching and be able to search for the meaning behind something. The example I use is if I want to search for guacamole, I also want to get returns referencing avocado. Even though there's no way that a keyword search would return those two, semantic search attaches those two things together because it's a common meaning. It looks like you might have lost John's there. And so right in the middle, our pitch for Stackwork is that it isn't any one of these pieces that you need. You actually need all of these pieces to effectively make machine learning applicable to whatever you're trying to automate or do. And in order to use those pieces in a cohesive way, you have to have a workflow. And so several years ago at Stack, we basically built a configurable workflow that lets you string all of these pieces together, use the model to generate something or check something, then have a human check the work of that model and then take an action, or ideally be able to have an automated action take place. So that's where private enterprise databases come into play. You wouldn't make your inventory searchable to everyone on the web. So you'll have APIs that access those private databases. And then you may have a human check the work coming out of those models and forward it on to an email that's stored in that private database. And as you figure all these things out, you want to be able to make your models smarter over time. So you'll store that in a vector or graph database and use that work to retrain the models on the lower right-hand corner. And then you redeploy that model and you got 1% smarter that day. So hopefully that gives you guys a framework to work within as you dive into this world, and it helps me sort all of the new things that come out every day. And so maybe this will do the same for you guys. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. Maybe Cody can post my information if anyone has any direct questions.
Yeah, totally. Really fast, Paul. Just before I know, like you've got to jump off in a quick sec. Could you talk a little bit about the intersection of like AI and Bitcoin here? Like you've got like a good little summary that I've found really helpful for thinking about this in terms of like as content and identity for AI approach infinity, like you need to come up against like the absolute scarcity of Bitcoin, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I'll tell a funny story. When we turned some of this stuff on, we actually let it run away, and we ended up burning through all of our quotas on ChatGPT pretty quickly. And so really, if one thing to think about zooming out a little bit with all this AI stuff is that generative AI makes it so that identities and content from those identities are basically effectively zero cost, and zero cost means infinite. And so you're going to have that lower right hand corner creating just unforeseen amounts of noise out there. If you look up the dead internet theory, it's basically that on steroids. So you have kind of infinity meeting the absolute scarcity of Satoshis. And so that's why you have this Dyson sphere of Bitcoin around your work that you're trying to do. And so we believe that using the best example of this, the defense that we see is L402s. So we've previously known as LSATs. So using a pay-as-you-go configurable token that you present to the server, and then that token is a bearer asset that lets your machine learning model use resources and make micropayments as you go. Seems to be a perfect fit for this new world. So this is the first use case that I've seen for machine learning. The real 10x better use case that I've seen for Lightning for companies in developed markets. All the work that we do in Stackwork is around the global South and getting Bitcoin out to people who have literally no other way to earn. And so this is a use case where you could legitimately go to any company in technology in Austin or San Francisco and say, hey, if you want to avoid chargebacks, then Lightning payments as a bearer asset is the way to go. The most convenient way to package those Lightning payments for machine to machine, so you have low overhead, would be the L402. Or the Rune, as it's known, and C Lightning, as I learned yesterday from Cody. So there's different versions of this. Does it have to be a Mac Rune? Can it be a Rune? Can it be a JWT? Basically, you just have to present something as a proof of payment to the endpoint, deal with the 402 handshake, and then move on from there. So we've used Boltwall, and so we have Boltwall from Buck Purley. We haven't played with Aperture yet, but that's the Lightning Labs software. And I know there's a C Lightning version coming out from Lisa, I believe. And so there are options for this. Highly recommend it so that you're not doing tons and tons of invoices to make micropayments. And so we've wrapped endpoints, and we basically pass all of the requests through the Boltwall server, so that the L402 server, so that you're always getting paid for what you do. Because as soon as you make an endpoint public, you're going to get spammed, and you just can't, you're letting other people use your resources. So there should be an economic incentive for every single use of resources out there. If you find yourself with an endpoint that doesn't have that protection, you're leaving yourself open to have another leak in the bucket there. So that's the pitch and intersection for the Bitcoin side of AI. And if you use OpenAI, you might be using a few cents for every query when you use their ChatGPT 4 engine, which is why they rate limit it so highly. Mm-hmm. And so those goods are already gone. And if you bought that credit card on the dark market and opened up your ChatGPT account with it, then that's money that company is never going to see. And so hopefully they're all looking for a solution for this. And, the L402 is a good example. We gave this talk in San Francisco at Shack 15 a couple weeks ago. and got approached by several machine learning startups in the Bay Area. No interest in Bitcoin previously. They said, hey, we have this problem. We can't go spend money and hope there isn't a chargeback. Ding, ding, that's the need for a bearer asset. And you need a bearer asset that can be wrapped in a machine-to-machine micropayment. Not to mention the fairness here of, let's say you're a young Replit programmer somewhere in South America or Africa or something like that. You don't have access to the US banking rails. How do you get a ChatGPT $20 a month account? Showstopper. So if this is truly such powerful technology, then you'd want to be able to wrap that as a pay-as-you-go. So, hey, hop on Stackwork, earn $10 doing some micro tasks, turn around, take those sats and use it to buy access to Replit or to any of these machine learning endpoints. And you have a nice circular economy there without the risk to the provider and without the needless hurdles of a US credit card or the ability to pay $20 lump sum every month. This is truly the payment system is the tail wagging the dog. Why are you charging $20 per month? Is that the ideal way to charge? Or is that because the credit card system means that, hey, I've got this 25 cent per payment plus percentage, so I can't do lots of charges to someone, so I have to roll this up into a $20 a month. L402s offer the option to do a completely different model for payments. Global. And if you want an audience now, you have a global audience, not just the people who have the credit card. All right, I'll shut up there.
Yeah. Totally. But Paul, that was an amazing summary of like all of this. And I know that we kind of covered a lot of different stuff there. And this graphic that you use from Stak is extremely helpful for kind of doing the whole overview. Like all the different components of this, we're going to have workshops over the next coming weeks that are going to like have like on Replit with working code, how to do all of this stuff, right? Except for the Stak workflow specifically over there. But Paul, you actually said that if people are interested in tying in the human human aspect for it, using a Stak workflow, where basically the agent can assess its own with its own capabilities, whether it can complete the task, whether it needs a human to be in the loop for it, that people might be able to use Stak for some credits.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry, I'm forgetting all the items here that we talked about. So yes, we'll offer anywhere $50, whatever you need. We'll offer credits so that if you develop an agent where it's almost there, but you don't want it running amok and you want a human to check, that's probably the ideal use case here. That's where a Stackwork workflow, you can call it using an API. We can set up that workflow for you, and then you can go ahead and hit that endpoint and have a human being or two check it before it goes out the door. And so that's a particularly good use case, especially when money's involved. Spending a penny or two on having eyeballs check it can save you that $5 burrito order that was an accidental order. So I'm excited to see everyone using things like LangChain and Baby AGI, AutoGPT, Multi-On. There's some really cool agents out there. But when you're spending real money, this isn't reg test. This is burritos showing up at doorways. So if you need humans, we're happy to provide the API link to get folks to check, and then you're spreading Bitcoin around the world.
Amazing. Awesome. Thanks so much, Paul.
Yeah, thanks so much, Paul. We also have Obi here. Maybe he wants to give a chat with you, Paul, before we kick off.
Yeah, hey, Obi.
The housekeeping. Yeah, Obi, ready to come up? Give him the thumbs up. There we go.
There we go.
Hey,
Obi.
Hey.
Nice to talk to you. I've been listening, obviously, to like everyone else, and just super excited to get going with this. We've been talking behind the scenes for several months now, but I'm fun. I'm really excited to see what the community is going to now make with everything you're doing.
Yeah, totally. Awesome. Thanks. And so for anybody who doesn't know Obi's the CEO of Fedi. Fedi and Stak are co-organizing this hackathon, right? So Obi and I have been talking for a long time about like the intersection of Bitcoin and AI, and Paul through Stak has been kind of doing some of the like bleeding edge work over there. Obi, I know that for like you've kind of got sort of a unified vision of like where AI is going and like kind of how Bitcoin ties into that. You want to take a sec to talk about that based off what Paul's been talking about too?
Yeah, I have to echo a lot of things that Paul has said, but I think we at Fedi, and a lot of people who are focused on Fedi Mint in the community like to think about things at the end state. The end state, hyper-Bitcoinization, where are we? Well, we have billions of people using technologies like Bitcoin, like Lightning, and other decentralized technologies, Nostr and so on, Stackwork, etc. That's great. But also we're going to have billions more computers and so on having to need to be accessing the internet and communicating with each other, etc. Now, once you realize that that's the end state, you then have to ask yourself, well, how do we make that work sort of economically? What is going to be the driver of incentives, etc., at this global scale? Now, first of all, you've got these 3 levels. You yourself personally, you're going to drive your desire to better yourself and for you and your immediate family. So that's going to lead you to improve and become self-reliant. That leads to a greater adoption of things like self-custody and running and learning how to operate systems themselves, programming, moving to the edges where individuals with things like Replit and so on have the ability to program and build functionality that's actually increasingly sophisticated. So that happens at the individual level. At the sort of global level, actually at the next level, we think communities will come together and try to have each other's back. And this is where things like Fedi Mint and Fedi come in. They take the existing superpower of collaboration, which people use right now to achieve tasks in the world, above the things that they can do by themselves. And we just supercharge that with technology to make it really easy. But then there's still going to be, at scale, there's going to be a need for you to require services from third parties. Maybe you don't need to identify yourself always, but you want it to be efficient. Now, at large, historically, that's been funded. If you look at the existing Web 2, it's been funded by advertising, where large centralized bodies will provide a service ostensibly for free, and they'll monetize it from a third party through advertising. So that's how they effectively have solved the micropayment problem. But at scale, in this more decentralized world that we're moving into, that doesn't really work, because you're going to have a number of millions of micro niches where there's not enough of a market to be able to monetize it through advertising, let alone build the system that can actually keep track of that. And so you go back to the most common, the most obvious solution, which is you should just charge directly for the service provided. But I need to charge that from anyone, anywhere in the world, at various levels, ranging from fractions of a penny to several thousands of dollars. And the answer is, the only way to do that is through Bitcoin, through Lightning, some sort of micropayment service that's available. Maybe an alternative could come about, but we already have one, which has been working for several years, is gaining more and more adoption, has been shown to be incredibly reliable. So as a base for monetizing any economic activity, Lightning and Bitcoin make sense. Now, what we need to look for, though, is what was going to be the first killer app, the first proof point. We're starting to see it with things like Nostr. Again, there's a certain social element where people are willing to go to a certain degree, but to get above a certain level of quality of service or to scale, you're starting to see people charging and so on. But it seems very clear to me and to Paul and to others and to Cody, etc., that AI was going to be the big killer app. It's something that you're effectively democratizing access to intelligence. There is no one on the planet who doesn't value being able to have access to intelligence on tap. So it's a widely accessible product, but it's a virtual digital product. The value is very hyper-specific to different people, and it's widely applicable. But it costs money. There is a cost to provide that to you in compute power and energy and electricity used up. So we need some mechanism at scale to fund it, and that mechanism is Lightning. So Lightning and AI are a match made in heaven. Now, what's interesting is that the AI community historically hasn't understood the need for things like Bitcoin and Lightning. But what you're seeing now is them struggling with issues of how do we monetize this, how do we scale this, and they're trying different options, and they're going through this sort of process at sort of warp speed, where they're trying traditional mechanisms. They realize that it penalizes many people that they don't want to penalize, and it limits their ability to grow. So they are hurtling towards Bitcoin and Lightning as the solution. And on our side, we are providing them tools to show how it can be done easily and simply.
Yeah, definitely. And this is something that I think Paul, he captured it really well when he was talking. So like the way that I've been thinking about this, right, is that we used to live in this world where API calls were free. And now we're kind of moving into this new thing where when you want to have cutting edge intelligence along with the API calls that you're doing, the API call isn't free anymore. And so all the stuff that we've been building in Lightning of, hey, you can take API calls and wrap payments around them, they weren't as compelling and appealing when API calls, you could just amortize them across the 90% of your free users, 10% of them paid, right? But I think like Paul's talked about this, and I don't know if like, I know he has to hop off soon, but maybe he can talk about the quick story about for Stak and the first time that you were using OpenAI and like the credit card issues that you ran into with the chargebacks, because I think that hits the, like API calls are no longer free and like the issues that arise with that when we don't use Lightning.
Yeah, I'll touch on that real quick. Is just we never want to. I mean, people are not going to adopt Lightning outside of necessarily the Bitcoin community. The general tech market is because of some sort of enthusiasm or ideology. It has to be a 10x better product. And in this case, I think we finally hit like product market fit for this use case. And so I was using OpenAI. I have a corporate card that I was using to pay for our main account, which is in the thousands of dollars. And an employee wanted to also sign up for an account, but not expense it. So I said, okay, I'll go ahead and sign up for a $20 account for you using the same card. So as soon as we tried to use that card for the $20 account, it threw some sort of Stripe fraud protection and shut down the card for our main account. So they went ahead and shut down, pushing $80,000, $100,000 a year from that account in order to protect themselves from this fraud alert coming out. And having been in consumer telecom, which is the highest level of credit card fraud you can find, we never turned our alerts up that high. I mean, you're basically walking away from huge amounts of money to have it that high. So this is just where there's smoke, there's a fire situation without knowing anything about what's happening internally. You do not do that level of defense unless you're getting a lot of fraud. And so given the public attention around this and the desire for having ChatGPT accounts, I bet you they're just getting hammered with fraud is my guess. And so if you went to them and said, hey, would you like to sell your product globally? Would you like to sell your product to people who don't want to pay $20 a month? Do you want to sell your product without the ability for 60, 90-day chargebacks where you don't know how much money you have? You know how much money you spent. You don't know how much money you have. Isn't that weird that we all live, if you accept credit cards, you live in this purgatory of pretend profits. And so if you want to leave the purgatory of pretend profits, and early on, I used to call this the death of net 30. Lightning can, if you ever see an invoice from a B2B invoice, they'll say net 30 at the end, So I've charged you for that money. I have spent the money to deliver you a product, but I'm hoping you pay me within the 30 days of me asking for the money. That is a crazy world of business that we're in. And hopefully we'll look back post L402 adoption and say, isn't it wild that you had an entire supply chain where each car in that train has a 30-day bungee cord between it. So I pay you, you pay your provider pays their provider, all the way back to China somewhere. And you have 30 days of bungee in between, of risk really, in between each step in that supply chain. So Lightning gets rid of that entire inefficiency in really the global market. But if you just look at this one use case, where digital good, your GPU time is gone. You spent it doing an inference and returned some tokens to someone, hoping that that's a good credit card number. So let's get rid of that hope and let's use 402s.
Couldn't agree more. as I say, if you look at this at a high level, if a service provided, there needs to be a way to compensate for that service. Sometimes there's a social compensation, but that doesn't scale beyond a community. And writ large, globally, there needs to be some compensation. Now, historically in internet terms, we've used advertising, but it doesn't work when you have a product that's available to anyone and anyone in the world is willing to access it and it's valuable to them, because as becomes a logical conclusion, you're going to see increased chargebacks because I can get this service at zero cost anywhere privately and use it. Either I have this sort of Orwellian nightmare where I have to track every single person and their exact usage, which goes counter to the user, to what the customer wants. The customer wants to be able to ask their private questions of their own personal intelligence without sharing that to third parties or to the minimum possible. So you've got this conflict between what your customer wants and what you want. Now, if you just say, I pay, you pay for this compute, and you use it for whatever you want, and I've received the money that I'm supposed to upfront for it, a few pennies at a time, I get what I want, you get what you want, and it's nice and simple. And that's why we're going to gravitate towards micropayments via Bitcoin, via Lightning. It's something that we're building for. And what's interesting now is we've talked about this as a community as a Bitcoin community for many years, but we're seeing that transition. We're seeing, if you just look at the brains of people outside of the Bitcoin space, even though they may not be seeing Bitcoin and Lightning right now, they're struggling. How do I get compensation for this from anyone, anywhere in the world at very small amounts when they want to maintain privacy? What's the solution for this? And then they're going through this process, and the penny is like starting to drop in many places. And we're fortunate as an industry to have been working behind the scenes on this, and it's come to fruition at this time. We have Lightning at an incredible level of maturity. If you look at the investment in the Lightning ecosystem over the last year, we have products like Stackworks that allow people to sort of institutions that want to use AI and to the best of their ability, they can now do that. And we have systems like Fedi and Mint that allow you to leverage AI within your community or personally on your own machine, or you can access the wider internet of AI, and you can pick and choose the level of privacy versus the level of power that you want.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just kind of put a bow on this conversation portion before we kind of move on for this is that, just like you were saying here, is that like this is something where I think all of us are so excited about this, because this is what we've been building for in Lightning for so long. There's a lot more that we want to do in Lightning, but Lightning as it exists today is really a perfect match for this AI boom as it's happening, right? Because just like you were saying, in terms of sender side privacy, I have very good sender side privacy on Lightning. There's enough infrastructure now in order for us to be able to start deploying this at scale. And that we've got a standard now through L402s where we can start going to different companies, going to different services, start building different tooling behind this, where now we can have a standard way of that anybody who wants to deploy an AI application at scale and open it up to everybody and not have risk of chargebacks can use this L402 standard to wrap it with Lightning payments, right? And it's not like back in 2019 or 2018 when you had like the unreliability associated with Lightning. It's like Lightning's here, Lightning's ready, and it's kind of a key in lock solution to a lot of these problems facing AI right now. And that's why we're so excited for this hackathon, because we can show up at these AI companies, we can show up with these AI builders, and we can say, hey, Lightning's here, Lightning's ready, Lightning solves a problem that Paul and Obi have just spent the last little bit kind of articulating for these ones. And just kind of being in San Francisco, being around this whole AI boom that's been happening for the last couple of months, like everybody is having this exact same problem. And that's why we're excited for this hackathon, right? So thank you so much, Obi. This has been absolutely amazing. Thank you, Paul, too. And I think we're going to cover the logistics now of like how the hackathon is going to be run, some of the workshops associated with it, the scheduling, how to get involved and stay involved, that sort of thing. So
Thank you, guys.
Yep. Thanks, Obi.
See ya.
I want to give a shout out to some of the people in the chat as well. We got some folks from Venezuela, Jay Deluxe, who is he's always showing up at our events. Ollie the Dev, what's up? What's up? Max Trotter's been dropping some interesting notes there. He says context plus specific info plus intent plus output format equals a good prompt. I'm definitely excited to see some of those kind of like prompt engineering workshops come up. We got some folks from Poland. Paul's not here right now, but there was a question if Stackwork was open source. Do you know about that?
Stackwork has a lot of the stack as open source, right? So everything associated with Sphinx and a lot of their L&D stuff is going to be open source.
Gotcha.
But then like the specific like workflow products that they have right now, like I think that's proprietary. But they're going to give credits for being able to use that and incorporate it into your AI workflows, right? And so I'll probably do an example app of that, of tying in like a LangChain agent that then calls a Stack workflow. And I think he's going to have one of his engineers also do like an L402 and bolt wall workshop where they're going to be using Stack. So,
oh, fantastic. We also got one from Max again, using a 10-year-old or more PC with off-grid LM is a great for learning and testing. Definitely. Would it be able to run actually on a 10-year-old machine though? These things, because like are these GPUs good enough? Can Prem run on a 10-year-old machine?
I don't know.
Would that
maybe.
be possible?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go through. Let's start going through the logistics of this.
All right, let's get into it. So let us start. So we went a little off schedule here, but hey, that's like any of our typical BOLT.FUN hackathons. You know, you gotta if the speakers come up, then you gotta put them on stage. But just to give you a rundown, we're gonna be doing a tournament overview, how to create your profile and how to get registered, how to get your project entered, and what this whole build in public thing is. We already had our special guest, Ovi and Paul. And then we're going to go through some of the events, the prizes, the judging, etc. All right. But first, let's a word from our sponsors, right? You hinted to them, but Cody, I'm going to leave this one up to you.
Yeah, sure. So, so this hackathon is organized by Fedi and Stak, and then we've in collaboration with Replit, and we've got a bunch of different sponsors too. But so Fedi is just like it says here, right? It's like we connect the most fundamental human technology community with freedom technologies like Bitcoin to level up humanity, right? And so just like Obi's been talking about, I can't say it better than he does. There's this really cool opportunity between like first party running it yourself, third party just like hitting everything off to OpenAI. There's this really cool design space between those of like running larger models at the community level. And so we'll be doing some workshops associated with that from some of the Fedimint team and some guys at Fedi as well. So
there's this concept of like this like federated computer where like just for context for everyone else out there, just to see how kind of like impactful this can be. You know, like from what I understand from it, you know, within your community, you have different members which are part of this federation, which are providing, yes, like Bitcoin services and stuff to you and minting eCash and all that, right? But you can run other applications on these computers as well. So someone might say, hey, I've got this cool I could never say that, LLM that I want to host. And then the users of, you know, the people, the community members can now tap into that and pay for it using that eCash or Bitcoin. That I think is like super special. And the scale of this could grow. It could be a community that's like local, or it could be a virtual community as well, right?
Yeah, totally.
So, yeah, I think that's quite impactful, especially when like people start coming together in the virtual space. I'm a big proponent for like these virtual communities, as you can tell.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we got Stak as well. Let's give some love as well. Could you just give a rundown from them?
I mean, again, just like, you know, because we have like the CEOs of both these companies.
Yeah.
I give their little pitches.
Yeah, but we need to give put the logo on the page. Come on, man.
I got you. Yeah, no, but
the crowd wants logos.
Stack has been doing the best work on the integration of agents with humans gated by lightning payments, right? And so like they're going to be giving credits for people to start using their tech during this hackathon too. But just like generally speaking, right, is that they've been doing tons and tons of work that I think people are going to be leveraging during the hackathon of how do you integrate agents with humans, where agents can assess their own capabilities and decide whether or not a task is either too complicated or a sub portion of that needs to be done by a human. And then you're giving the agent access to a Lightning wallet so that it can pay the human for the task and then continue with what it was doing, right? But
Yeah, I think they kind of came out of this mechanical Turk style thing as well, right? And you know, someone, I don't know where I heard it, if it was like IRL or whatever. Someone was saying that like it's a these AI systems can kind of like cannibalize themselves. Like, you know, Google is kind of basically cannibalizing their business model because it's like, oh, here's like some like really clean results because you're using this that kind of interface. But in order to get those results seeded, you still need content creators. You still need people. You know, you still need people as part of that process. You know, because
well, this is something that I, as part of some of the tracks that I think I'm really excited to see someone try to build this for, is that we're already running into issues where there's so much AI generated art that it's basically feeding back into itself, right? And the quality of the new models is going down on some of these things if they're being trained over the AI art, right? And so how do you use Bitcoin in order to gate the quality of the art, either by ensuring that it was created by a human or just generally gating the quality so that you can have better training sets over what you're training your models over, right? So it doesn't just apply to images, but it applies to like just large language models as well, right?
Definitely. And we have a collaboration with Replit. This one's kind of huge. And for me, it's kind of interesting because Replit is this huge platform. I think you said it was something like 2 million daily active users or something.
Yeah, I think that's the most recent numbers.
Kind of wild.
I mean, like the reason why I've been like a long time supporter of Replit, like, you know, I was like a Replit patron and Replit rep and those things. And like, I learned to code on Replit, and I've like really been pushing for like collaborations with them in order to do Bitcoin and Lightning development, because their platform is just so amazing for it. And so all the workshops that we're going to be doing, they're all going to be run like around Replit. We're going to be publishing tutorials for them. And then we're also going to be doing a bunch of bounties during this hackathon. And so it's going to be like little projects that you can do as you're approaching toward the end, where it'll be like, you know, like $100 here, $200 there of different intersections of AI and Bitcoin as a Replit bounty for just something that you can make on the way toward your final project, right? And so keep an eye out for those. And then there's tons of integrations that we've done for some of the other sponsors where we're going to be putting their products on Replit as well and being able to gate access to it through there. And so, yeah, this is a finalists of our sponsors. Shout out to Hivemind, Spirit of Satoshi, Prem, and Zebedee. And Prem and Zebedee are both going to be doing workshops during the coming weeks as well for how to use. So Prem is doing basically on-premise, how do I run my own AI models instead of having to hit a third party, but something more powerful than I might be able to run on my phone, for example, right? So just like a self-hosted server with access to like the most powerful AI models that I can run on that thing locally. Right. And then Zebedee is a Bitcoin gaming company, and they're going to be doing like a big partnership with us for this hackathon. And like, I think Andre's actually going to be posting some stuff about that today. And that's going to be super exciting for some of their workshops and some of the credits and stuff that they're going to be giving out during part of the hackathon.
Yeah, and Hivemind, Max Webster from Hivemind, he is like just super bullish on one Bitcoin, two Nostr, and definitely the AI stuff. So he's we'll see if we get him at some point in the next couple weeks to give some presentation. He wrote like a really great article recently on like how to just his thoughts on the AI landscape and how that's going to evolve and integrate Bitcoin.
And then
stuff.
Spirit of Satoshi is Svetsky's new company, and they're doing they're like from scratch training some like Bitcoin large language models. And so I think they're going to have a release at some point during the hackathon, and so they'll be like putting some stuff out for that as well. But for that one, it's like, hey, how do we from scratch train something so that, I don't know if you run into these issues already, but there's basically like a lot of the training data really closely associates like Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, right? But like, as we know, there is like a division between those, is that there is Bitcoin and then there is everything else. And so like one of the things that they're doing is like retraining a model so that it's like focused on the Bitcoin content. It's very good Bitcoin content. It doesn't like relate it across to all of the like cryptocurrency stuff, that sort of thing. Right.
I'd be very interested to see what kind of personality this thing has, right? Like can we make it have this maximalist tone, or do you tone it down, or whatever? But
Yep.
yeah, and I think that's another example of like maybe you want to like run something for your own community. You want to self-host it possibly, and then maybe you want to have it inside of this like federation and have people pay for it as well. So like some of these sponsors that we have, they definitely like kind of connect with one another to create some interesting dynamics there. All right. Well, then let us give you an overview of this hackathon. So, like we said, the Hackathon AI for All, it's organized by Fedi and Stak, and we have all these wonderful support and collaborators in the community, different companies involved in making this happen. I think it's really pivotal because, it's not only looking at the Bitcoin ecosystem, but we're trying to bring this technology out into the world and show them that Bitcoin is a solution to this kind of payment problem that they have, this global payment problem. And yeah, so very super excited for that. We have several tracks and stuff which we'll be going through. Yeah, but most importantly, for some of you guys, we have $14,000 in prizes that are up for grabs. That is pretty big. That is pretty big. So if that's not an incentive for you, I don't know what else is. So for the overall track, sorry, this is the kind of like okay. So we have 4 different tracks. Let me just go through those first. We got agent and machine payments. Cody, this is very tied into the L42 kind of spec, right?
Yeah. So basically the thing that this track is really focused on, right, is that you're going to be able to, there are going to be thousands, millions, billions of these agents, right, that like just like ephemeral intelligences and ephemeral agents that you're just spinning up. Maybe they exist for a certain period of time and then they get spun down, right? And they need the ability to make economic decisions and like take economic action in the world. And so for this track, this is going to be very focused on like, how do you equip agents with Lightning wallets and make them do interesting things, right? So how do you get them to pay each other? How do you get them to pay humans? How do you tie them into existing AI workflows and that kind of stuff, right? So that's sort of what this one is focused on.
Yeah, and like I guess like another component of it is how do you get humans to pay it as well, right? Yeah. That's also a big one there. We also got a privacy track. What's this all about?
Yep. So there's like a couple different ways that AI could go, right? So we could like turn into Big Brother, right? Or we could come up with solutions where we can access this stuff at scale and democratize access to it is really what this is focused on. And one of the cool things about Lightning is that there's like very good privacy guarantees, especially on the sender side, right? And so leveraging some of those privacy guarantees associated with Lightning in order to allow access to generative AI products at scale. And so kind of cypherpunk ethos, right, is that like privacy is not secrecy. Privacy is the ability to selectively reveal yourself as part of a transaction. So maybe at the beginning is that the person I'm interacting with knows nothing about except for the fact that I paid them for use of their model or use of their graphics card or use of their AI service generally, right? Or maybe I can selectively reveal additional information, but that should be something that I choose to do, not something, or the user chooses to do, not something where I'm forced to dox myself to anybody that I want to use this service of, right? So we're really excited to see what people build in terms of privacy as it applies to generative AI.
Yeah, and well, Prem, like the other part of privacy is like just not giving anyone else access to any of your requests, right? So Prem is something that like one of the sponsors there, allowing you to basically run your own models and train them in your own kind of environment, whether it's a local device or in your own cloud instance. And on the topic of training, we have a track for that as well, right? As we mentioned, the quality of some of the data that's coming, getting sent out on the web, on Twitter, on like even YouTube. I'm watching like these YouTube videos and stuff, and there's a bunch of like AI generated videos now. Some of them are quite good. Don't get me wrong. but as you mentioned, it can start cannibalizing itself, and like AI start training itself on AI. So perhaps somebody is creating like this Bitcoin content, or maybe some content for your community, or whatever it is. There's a whole track for perhaps like putting together a data set in which you can maybe spin up a marketplace, right? Make this available in a marketplace kind of environment, get people to pay for it or something.
Mhm.
You know, I think there could be some pretty cool stuff there.
Yeah, and I think that I know that there's been a lot of Nostr devs who are kind of coming into this hackathon. I think that there's some real opportunities around here in terms of cleaning up and establishing Nostr datasets and coordinating the training over Nostr datasets, or even just like coordinating like the RLHF over using Nostr, for example, right? So this is something to definitely keep an eye out for. Very excited to see what people build for this track as well.
Yeah. That intersection also, by the way, like I keep saying this at like every hackathon that we have, the intersection of multiple technologies is what's going to make like the most robust, most innovative things, the most useful things.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely very excited to see, whether it's that Nostr side or the AI side and Bitcoin side combined. Nostr and Bitcoin are already kind of like synonymous with one another. But there's some big problems. Ben Ark was telling me that he's showing at the Oslo Freedom Forum, he's showing all these activists like, hey, you guys should be using Nostr. And he's like, what's all this like Bitcoin random stuff in there? Which is great for us as our community, but like other people who wanting to come in there, maybe they want something a bit more personalized on their topics, similar to what you get in other social platforms. And we also have education track. So I have secretly been using, I think many people have as well, using ChatGPT and all these different models to, either come up with tutorials or help me out with my work and stuff, or explain things to other people. But we have a whole track of for Bitcoin education. Like maybe we could use these models. Maybe it's the Spirit of Satoshi one when it comes out as well, or you're creating some special prompts in ChatGPT or other services to generate like some courses, or maybe it's that YouTube video content for Bitcoin education. So far, we were talking about this. We were looking for LSAT and LNURL auth content, and like most of that you find on Google, it's like from BOLT.FUN, which is great for us. We feel great about it that we're able to generate such content and be number one on there. But it's not a fair competition if we're the only ones there. So yeah, and this track is really great as well because maybe you don't know how to code. You could still use these ChatGPT models and stuff to generate educational resources and stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And each of these tracks, so that was the last track. As I mentioned, 4 of them. Each of these tracks are $1,000 for the winner of the track, the overall winner of those tracks. But we do have a grand prize of 10K. 10K for the paperclip max. By the way, Cody, what's a paperclip maximizer?
Oh, it's an AI joke. So a lot of the like AI safetyism, they're very concerned that if you have the AI just try to like optimize for one thing and you try to like have it build paperclips, then it will just continue to build paperclips until it destroys the entire universe. And so it's kind of just like a tongue-in-cheek joke, right? About like, hey, well, what if you gave that AI access to money so it could actually pay for the things that it was doing as it was doing it, and instead of just kind of it being a theoretical concept? But yeah, no, it's just a little joke for it. Like the big one is just anything that gets submitted for here is going to be for this hackathon is going to be eligible for this $10,000 prize for it. And like we really just want to create an incentive because so kind of like big picture for this, right, is that I've been going to all these AI events and like Obi and Paul have been talking about this as well, right? Is that like this is a clear solution and application of Bitcoin to this AI monetization problem, right? And like there's other aspects associated with it, but the big one right now is monetization on either the human side or on the agent side, right? And so the response that a lot of us get are, okay, show me, right? And so like the point of this hackathon is to like build out a bunch of amazing projects for this stuff. And so, yeah, we've got the prizes. Yeah, we've got the bounties. Yeah, there's going to be some sponsors that are going to be putting up credits and all those kinds of things, right? But just like, you know, this is kind of the, like by solving this monetization problem, right? And like presenting this to investors as part of the judging, presenting this and kind of like showing that like, yes, not only just like Bitcoin fix this in theory, here's example projects of Bitcoin fixing this like in practice, like as part of this hackathon, right? Like we really hope this is going to kick off kind of a move toward that, like everyone starts doing this. They say, okay, well, here's like my normal Web 2 application. I want to add AI into it. The way I do that is I monetize it using Bitcoin, right? And so, yeah, so this one just like really excited to see who gets the overall prize for this one. And then also like afterward, there's going to be we got some announcements coming later for other prizes associated with this stuff, right? But
Ooh, exciting. All right, well, let's start giving a rundown of some of the key dates and stuff. So the 1st of July, things have kicked off. Entries are open throughout the entire month, from the 1st until the end of the month. You're able to submit your projects, right? In the first 2 weeks, we're going to have like educational programs set out. So today, this opening is like the first one, but throughout the rest of the week and next week, we're going to have different workshops, different series on either concepts within AI or concepts within Bitcoin to help you either on the API layer or the application layer or just like the UX layer. Of how you combine these two things and how they work individually. On the end of the month, the 31st, this is when you're going to have to submit your pitches, right? So ideally, you have a couple days in which you're preparing your pitch before the 31st, and you're posting it on BOLT.FUN. As kind of like, we have this thing called a story. So you go BOLT.FUN, and then there's once you sign in and stuff, there's a link there for create new story. And you submit your pitches there. There's also, and I think, it's 23:59 UTC. Project entries close on that day. And then a few days later, we're going to be announcing the winners, and that's a special event that we're going to probably give you some more information a bit later. Yeah, we keep that one a little secret for now.
Yeah, we'll have some announcements as we're going along with it, right? But it's gonna be good. You know, it's like the point of this hackathon is like we show like, hey, Bitcoin fixes this, right? And not like in the abstract. This is like here are really, really great examples of Bitcoin fixing this. And then we put it in front of investors. We put it all over projects as part of the judging. Like, these are investors. These are guys within AI. These are guys within Bitcoin. And we say, hey, it's not just Bitcoin fixes this in theory. It's that Bitcoin fixes this in practice. And here's a bunch of cool examples for it of all these amazing projects that are doing this, right? You're on mute, Johns.
Sorry. And we have some pretty big name judges as well. You want to go over those ones since you mentioned them?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So like Replit's new head of AI is going to be one of the judges. Brian from Craft Ventures. Lalu, the inventor of the L402 specification. I think he's also going to be doing a workshop later. Not this week, but probably next week for it. And then we're actually going to start doing L402 spec meetings. And so that's going to be part of that as well. McKay is going to, he's been an AI dev for as soon as like GPT-3 came out, like he came onto the Twitter scene doing that one. Is that I'm going to be doing a live coding session with him next Thursday for how to make LNGPT. So I wrapped his open source version of ChatGPT with Lightning payments. And so we're just going to do like a live coding session for that one. Andre Neves, head of Zebedee, he's going to be doing, there's going to be a bunch of announcements coming from Zebedee very, very soon. But as it applies to like Replit and applies to this hackathon of like some prizes and perks and stuff they're going to be giving. Yeah. And then like, we've got just a ton of great judges, right? And like, really the point of this is that like, Bitcoin fixes this, Bitcoin solves a problem within AI. So like, here's just an examples of this for a bunch of people who are like really critical in the industry of how this solves it, right?
Yep, and let's go over some of that, some of the events as well. I think, let me pull this up as well. So this week, we're going to be having, well, now it's the opening ceremony. Some of you have been asking, what can I work on? Who can I work with? You're looking for teams. well, we're going to be having 2 maker mixers, one for Western Hemisphere, so that's pretty much like across the Atlantic. Or this, well, I'm in Europe now, so Europe, Africa, Asia, Pacific, etc. We're gonna have one, hopefully, good for your time in the Western Hemisphere and the Eastern Hemisphere. Cody, you're gonna be taking care of that one, right?
Yep.
Yep. And we got some other workshops here.
Yeah, I can cover these ones. So,
Yep.
so the first one that we're gonna do. So I'm actually gonna have like another one that I just I got the coding bug last night, and I built another workshop last night. But so the one that I'm gonna do tomorrow is let's build Sauron. So that's like, how do you run a Lightning node out of a REPL? And that's gonna be using Core Lightning, and it's got this really cool way of using Replit's Nix package management system and Core Lightning's plugin system in order to make a really cool way to basically tie AI into like a Core Lightning plugin. So we're going to build Sauron, which is just a way to run a Core Lightning node out of a normal REPL. And then we're going to tie in AI to it, which is going to be fun. And then on Thursday, we've got the Breeze SDK workshop with Jesse DeWitt. And we've got a bunch of Greenlight API keys, which is basically Blockstream's new node system, right? It's a non-custodial way of doing Lightning using Greenlight, and we've got a ton of API keys for that one. So anybody who takes part in the hackathon can get a Greenlight API key for that. And then Thursday night, my time, we're going to be doing the LNGPT with McKay, which is going to be great. And then Friday, we've got a couple more. We've got some new workshops that we're like finalizing along, like hopefully Zebedee's going to be doing a couple as well. Stackwork's going to be doing a couple. And then we've got like a bunch more in a week too, but this is kind of like the first opening for this of like, how do you do some of these very basic things with Lightning, with Bitcoin, with some of the like more popular AI applications, like, the OpenAI APIs, as well as LangChain. Right.
Yeah. And, just keep track of the AI for All page on BOLT.FUN. It's up on the sidebar here, and we'll keep updating the schedule as things get added. So yeah, follow the YouTube as well. So then subscribe to the YouTube, so then we can you'll see the notifications come up when we have different live streams scheduled up. So you'll be able to get like all this information right here, FAQs, etc. There's also the Discord you can click on right here on the AI for All page, and you can join in there. There's some conversations happening there. If you also want to figure out who's attending the event, maybe figure out who you can work with or reach out to, you'll see some of the people, the makers we call them, right here, their kind of roles. So we see Dav here, who's product manager and business developer. Some people, at a hackathon, you tend to think like these things aren't important. It's just code. But, we have some investors. So if anyone is in, like, say, investors that are going to be looking, like HiveMind and other folks, so, if you really want to like have something that connects with users, something that's really useful, you need to have a dynamic team. So, I don't know what Dav's working on, but, maybe you might want to team up with him. You click that team up button, you could get his Discord username, or you could figure out, you could reach out to him on Twitter, as he has there. Fill out your profiles as well. You go to, just go to your profiles, fill it in, so that people can get in contact with you. You are going to need a LNURL auth enabled wallet. So for me, I use Albi. But if you need some more information on that, when you go to sign in, so it's not a typical login. We're trying to promote Bitcoin here. So ideally, all of you guys are actually having a Lightning wallet. We have a list there. So if you're not really sure what that is, you can click here. We have a list of different wallets that you can use to log into the website. It's a very cool interaction, actually, and maybe you learn something about how to authenticate your own application through this kind of user experience. But yeah, you could either download it on mobile or use like Albi as the extension on desktop on Chrome and Firefox and Brave and etc. etc. But yeah, it's super simple to log in. You click to connect there, and then it'll get you in there. I just have to sign into my there you go. Right, and yeah, so just make sure you fill out your profile after you've registered. Yep. What else do we have? I think that's pretty much it. We got a list of places that you should pay attention to. Make sure to check out the Discord. I showed you where to get that as well. We have workshops on YouTube, as I mentioned. Follow Fedi BTC on Twitter. Also, you can use the hashtag AI for all and tag Fedi BTC, so then we can, like highlight your tweet, etc. And on BOLT.FUN is BOLT.FUN/tournaments/AI for all, or BOLT.FUN/feed. You'll see the feed with people's updates and questions and whatnot. Yeah, we didn't have the judging criteria. My bad. So this is some of the judging criteria. We'll have a different session. We'll probably have a different session on this coding to get more into the details of it, but just on a high level. Value proposition, innovation, is it something cool, innovative that we haven't necessarily seen in the space? What is your AI and Lightning integration? Are you building in public? Building in public is kind of important for us. We want to, we're doing this not just for ourselves while we're building in public, but for other people who are going to be building later down the line. So even though it feels like a competition, there's prizes and stuff like that, in Bitcoin, the great thing about it is that we're all community driven. The whole thing is community driven, and we want to highlight that there. In this transparency, show what you're working on, show how you solve the problem, ask questions, whether in Discord or on BOLT.FUN there itself. You could also go to the Replit community hub as well. We'll be paying attention to that. Execution, how what's the quality of what you did? How complete were you able to make it? Another one that's quite under focused at hackathons is UI and UX, but this is super important. These things have to be usable by the masses. That's what we're trying to do. Now, whether it's focused on a developer, you write up some docs, that's developer experience. That's the UX for developers. If it's an application, talk to some people. And that's why the build in public thing comes back in, right? You're showing what you're working in, you're getting some feedback, and you're ultimately making a better product or a better tool. And je ne sais quoi. So this is just very subjective, but does it have that little extra oomph? Yeah. Cody, you got anything you wanna mention specifically?
Nope, that's it. So just keep an eye out. We're gonna be posting a bunch of stuff on there. Yeah, we've got a bunch of exciting stuff, and I'm just really excited to get this stuff moving. So.
Yeah, this is just the beginning. We got the whole month ahead of us. So we got the next 2 weeks of education. Super excited. For those of you who feel like you're not ready for a hackathon, you don't have the knowledge and stuff yet. We're gonna have mentors. Me and Cody are gonna be in the chat, ask questions, post on BOLT.FUN any questions that you have. We'll also respond there. Reach out to one another. And it's a great time at this month. It's a great time to experiment with these things. Even if you don't want to compete, even if you aren't going towards the prize, it might just be the time when you want to kickstart your own project and just give it some time and hack with other people. That's fun. It's a great environment to learn in. And be nice to one another, support each other, and register for the hackathon. Looking forward to seeing you and what everyone built.
Thanks, John. Thanks, everybody.
Take care, guys.